I All right. Good evening, Spray Wash Academy friends and family. Hey, Ray will likely be joining me here in a little bit. We'll get started here in a few minutes, but tonight I want to talk a little bit about lifts and about what you do, how you do, why you do, and kind of go down that road. But two things. So my daughter says I'm getting a little bit too flashy for her. This is from Nick Hopkins, who is in Australia. Great guy, and I love his shirt anyhow. I think it's cool. But anyhow, so every now and then I like to switch it up, and Jacob likes to make fun of me for wearing the same shirts anyhow. So this time I'm going with the Australia theme, and we're going to go for it. But we're going to talk about a little bit about lifts tonight. And in honor of one of my best friends, deepest, dearest, longest friend who passed away almost 2 weeks ago now, I go this Friday to his memorial, but he liked to say, all right. So I'm throwing that out one there for Lance for me. Anyhow, I want to talk about lifts tonight. Again, Ray might be joining me here in a little bit, and so we'll kind of go with that. He's playing hooky because he has Finn with him this evening, and Finn's got an earlier bedtime. I think it was Brooke, one of Ray's daughters, Ray and Tanya's daughter, that had to go in for some emergency surgery. I think a root canal or something like that. So he's going to try to join us, but it might be a little bit. But anyhow, we're going to talk about lifts tonight. Wild West is here. Hey, Wild West. MTH is here. Tom is in the house. Jacob is in the house already. Lifts, did you say? Nope. He's not going to do that. Truth Seeker is here. Hey, all right. So as we get into this, what I try to do when I do these is I try to compile my thoughts, and I jot down all the things that I'm thinking about that I think are important. And then after that, I'll go through and I'll try to categorize them or organize them a little bit. And I didn't have a whole bunch of time. So we're going to go over things like filling out credit apps to try to help get you to get yourself a rep. So we want to talk about getting a rep and why doing counter sales is a bad thing. We'll talk about the different options, the different types of lifts. There you go. There he is, popping in.
Hey, what's happening?
We'll try to cover weekly rates. We'll try to cover things like if you do just straight counter rates, that's a bad thing for you. Use your contacts and let them rent the lift for you. So we're going to talk about a whole bunch of things. But now that Ray's here, I don't know how much time you're going to have, Ray. You can be here for a while.
Yeah, I think so. Brittany had to have an emergency root canal tonight or today, and so wound up on Finn duty. But then Brittany is feeling a bit better, so she's here. So I don't know.
Oh, very cool.
But then she's taking over bath duties, and I'm done. So
hey, quick curiosity question for you. Did you know that if you hit the unmute button, you can hear the other person much better?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. You were talking. I'm like, why is he not? Oh, yeah. It's my stupid fault. I hope everybody could hear me. Yeah, but they could. Anyhow.
You're loud and clear to me.
What's that?
Said loud and clear here. So
Awesome. All right. So the first thing that I felt like, talking about is not really having the counter guy, right? So I think it's a bad idea to just call up on the phone and say, hey, I need a lift. Okay. And understand this, you don't necessarily have to know what type of lift you want and or need. That's part of what most of these companies will do for you. They'll help you determine what lifts you need, how tall you need that lift to be, whether or not the lift is going to fit, work, and do what you need it to do. And so that's why counter sales sucks. And Ray, what is counter sales?
Well, counter sales is whenever you call up Sunbelt, you call up United and say, I need a lift. And they're going to say, what size? I guess 60. Okay, where do you want it delivered? And what happens is you get street rate from the counter. It's just like you walking up as an unknown entity to them, walking into it, and you're there,
You're a one-time rental, never going to rent from them again, and you're going to get the highest price they have.
Exactly. And so that's the wrong way to rent from any of these companies. And, the most expensive way you can rent too is to go for that 1-day rental rate on there. And one of the things, like some of the stuff you need to check on, is do we have delivery fees, or am I having fueling fees? The insurance, is your insurance, do you have a policy to where your insurance covers the lift, or do you need to pay that 10-15% that they're going to charge you on top of it for the insurance?
A lot of policies actually have, if you have a general liability policy, a lot of them already have a $25,000, maybe $50,000, maybe $15,000 rider on them that says we cover you in rental equipment up to X dollar amount. Personally, I don't use that. I pay the extra fee every single time, so I don't have to deal with that.
We actually stopped doing that because we had like $100,000 equipment rider on ours, so we stopped paying theirs eventually. So
yeah, but you're smarter than I am.
I don't.
No, for me, I always built it back into my cost, and so I didn't necessarily care. But yeah,
there's someone, and I don't. I'm on my iPad. I don't know if I can even. Okay, yeah, I can if I punch it. I've never done this on my iPad before. So damage sidewalk landscape contingency and contractor upcharge off the get-go for potential damage. I know. If you cause that damage,
it's yours.
It's usually on your butt, you need to do the adequate protections.
That's why part of what we're going to talk about here tonight too, I mean, assuming we get everything in, but is plywood, putting down plywood. Not only that, but building. So if you have a curb, right, putting 2x4s or 2x6s or whatever it is to help get that lift up there while you're having the plywood, and then laying the plywood out. Because if you damage it, it's on you.
It's your fault. You know what I mean? I've literally got a $2,500, well, plus the $375 tow out, so right at $3,000 landscape damage bill that we caused. We had a lip slide down a sidewalk got just a little bit off the sidewalk and the mats and slid down a hill at Florida State. And we're eating that. We're paying for it now. Luckily, it was. Good night, buddy. I love you.
Good night, Mr. Finn.
Yeah.
Have fun, buddy.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
That's what I think too when I hear him talk.
I'm going
anyway. And it is what it is. I mean, and luckily it was $50,000 worth of work. So, okay, it's an acceptable within the parameters there. And so going into this, the lift company that I use would go to my site and conduct an on-site inspection, then suggest the equipment I will need. They'll point out any potential hazards. And that's where we're trying to go to here.
Absolutely.
I feel like the glare from my baldness is distracting.
It's pretty tight, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Good night, Nick. Nick said he's going. I got to tell our buddy good night. So,
night.
And so the next step, or the step that we all should be doing with lift company, is getting an account representative, getting somebody that's assigned to you to take care of your account. A lot of times, if you go in and you ask for a credit application, they'll go ahead and sign you an account representative. Here's what happens whenever you have an account representative.
Things change.
Things change a lot for you. Your rate changes. Your service changes. You have somebody to go out there and say, you actually have an advocate for you, because what he wants from you is more business. The counter guys they're not salespeople. They're order takers.
And I'll even go one further. I mean, once you it's with everything else in building relationships, right? So you're building a relationship with this guy, even if you're right now, hey, this is the only job I have, the only job I've ever had. Be honest, be upfront, tell him, hey, it's the only job I've got. I'm hoping to get more. He will help you in that process. And especially if he hears of something, oh yeah, okay. He's going to be an advocate for you, not only for the rental side, but he needs to try to help you in getting any additional work that he can so that he can get you to rent from him. So if he hears something, you never know. This business is all about building relationships like we always talk about.
All right, I think I'm unmuted now. Sorry. Okay, so Mama just got home, but the and that's what you were saying, Doug, and what I was catching. Whenever you get that advocate for you, he's going to go in there and actually go to the job sites, review the job sites. He'll actually look and say that, okay, you might need an 85 here, but then we could swap it out, and for the next day you could go with a 45, and we can save you some money here. Yeah, he wants to build that long-term relationship.
Even if he knows that you're going to have an additional pickup and drop-off charge, but that additional pickup and drop-off charge still might be saving you, say, $300-400 a day based on the type of lift that you're going to be needing. But then going over here, so you need this 80-foot articulating here, but over here you really need a scissor lift, an all-terrain scissor lift, that kind of thing.
Tommy's right. Helps in a machine malfunctions, he'll be in your corner. Absolutely. You don't call the shop and say, hey, could you send somebody out? And Jack Garrett following up on that. A friend of mine rented a lift a couple weeks ago. It was 40 foot in the air, and the lift failed. The emergency switch also failed, and he was stuck there for 6 hours while they tried to repair the machine. Yeah, that's something to look at on that. I had a crew. I had one of my guys get stuck in a lift on New Year's Eve for 5 to 6 hours on there. It really sucked. Five hours, because we came down. It was like 4 o'clock. I was like, all right, Travis, come on down. Let's wrap it up. Leave a little bit early. And he's like, okay, stop screwing with me. Turn it back on. And I'm like, I'm not screwing with you. I'm not.
Another good thing about having an account rep too. So like I had the same thing happen. So first of all, the contract pretty much with them is going to say that, they're not really responsible for your lost time, so to speak. Okay. But having a good rep in your corner can help with all these costs and fees that, especially if one goes bad. I had one. I was up in the lift, it was a 60-foot lift. I was doing a steeple on a church and got up there, and I was pretty high up off of the roof. And lo and behold, a hose popped and blew hydraulic fluid all over the roof. Okay. So first of all, I can no longer move. I can't do anything to go anywhere. And so, I had the guys, hey, look, hit me with some degreaser, and, I try to get as much of that off the roof as possible. But, in the meantime, we're waiting on the lift company to send somebody out to get me off of there. I mean, good thing for me, I use the ag hose, and I tried to not shimmy down the road to the roof, and, or shimmy down the hose to the roof. But anyhow, then they come out, they've got certain overrides they could do. We figured out where it was and what to do and all that. But so I ended up back charging them for the roof cleaning. Yeah. We ended up just working it out because I had a rep, and he said, look, okay, how about this? How about we go ahead and we obviously we're getting rid of your entire lift rental cost, and we're going to do this for you on the next one. And it's in writing. Okay. So I have all that. And we work it out together, so it works out for the branch and it works out for us. They now know that they've got somebody that they can work with. I'm not, hammering on it because I'm not going to get anywhere anyhow.
Yeah, yeah. And again, this is the joy. And, another thing that somebody should always do is go ahead and fill out a credit app with Sunbelt, with United Rentals, with Equipment Share, whatever you wind up doing, whoever. Hell, do it with multiple people on there. Even if you don't have any credit, it's still good for the young guys and the no credit guys to get in there, because you'll usually get approved if you can show a couple of trade references on there. and then you have it. You're not having to pay at the counter. Hey, I need $2,500, for us to institute this rental, or nor is it going to be due the minute that we pick it up, and they're hounding you for it. So again, credit app with Sunbelt, with United Rentals. This will help, a great deal. Somebody had mentioned about owning your own. I'm not a fan of it, even though our company owns, I think, either 7 or 9 now. Up to 85s, down to scissors, and everything in between. But until you
Jim Bob is the one that had talked about that. We kind of went back and forth on that, and I'm in the same boat that you are. I mean, depending on how much you're doing and what you're doing, I don't want to own one, and I don't want to own one because of the maintenance that goes along with them.
At an annual inspection.
Yeah. The insurance that I got to carry on it, all of the different things. And I would rather have somebody that I can call, I can rent. If it breaks, just like mine did when that hose blew and I'm stuck in the air, who do I call? Who are you going to call? I'm not calling anybody. I'm the guy stuck in the air, right?
Right.
Where I was able to. So I prefer to not own, but I get the point of it depending on how much you're using.
Yeah. In our company, when I say our company, the company that I sold my company to, now, I mean, they actually have dedicated mechanics on staff and certified lift aerial platform trainers, and they're well equipped for that. If something goes wrong, Chris and Yeltsin can go out there and take care of this. But for the average guy, guy who's that $1.5 million down to $500,000 company, lifts can be really better rented than purchased. Yeah.
I want to throw this one out there, Joe. We actually didn't flood this round. The flood waters receded back in 2016. It was just hurricane came through, wind, and knocked all kinds of trees down. So we're still dealing with that, yes, but we got power on, so we're good to go. Jim Brown.
Then you hired Scott to come fix it. Yeah.
Scott says, I own one, but it's purely for my personal use.
He also owns like 40 bucket trucks too,
Yeah, he's got vacuum trucks and bucket. Yeah, he's so yeah. Mm-hmm. Who knows what all he's got? He's got Cyclone. He's got all kinds of stuff.
That boy's got toys.
Yeah, that boy's got toys. That's for true. And Scott, hey, I'm repping Australia here, right? Nick Hopkins, love that guy.
Soft wash Australia.
If you got a problem, take it up with him.
That's right.
There you go.
They're both tall, but I think Nick's got him in the shoulders.
Yeah. He definitely got him in the shoulders. There you go. Anyhow,
I love Nick's story because Nick played a little rugby, which apparently is for those not familiar with rugby is professional grade smear the queer. What we used to play as boys, and Nick was like, I thought I got drafted and thought I'd play me a little professional rugby there until about the first time I got hit, realized I wasn't that big of a boy after all.
There you go. And Timothy Welker saying, call my wife Christine or message her. She's a rental coordinator for Equipment Share.
Perfect. There you go. Perfect. I know Crystal Clean's big believer in rental share, and good. Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. That would be, I highly recommend them.
Another good thing about having a rep that's in your corner, right? Again, we talked about there are so many different options when you come to rentals and what you can get, and you need to know whether or not you need something that's all terrain. You also have to think about, like, if it's an electric thing and you're going to have it for many, many days or many, many weeks on end, is there a place to plug that thing in and get it charged back up? Do you need is it going to be narrow enough? Is the machine too wide to fit through certain passages? Man, that guy, when he comes out, that's his job. Because a lot of guys, I hear this all the time. Man, it's only a 60-foot building, so I'm golden with an 80-foot lift. Well, maybe, but probably not. It's not just about how high up you can go; it's how far out you can go. So you have to go up and out, And so an 80-foot lift might not even make a 40-foot building
Yeah.
if there's too much in between there. You can't make
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely. And you know, the bigger the lift, really the more limited range you have as far as functionality range, you know, going up. Like if you say a 125, absolutely 125 will put your feet at 125 foot in the air, but you might only get 60-foot outreach on 125. Also, the bigger the lift, whenever you get into those 80s, you know, really even it starts at 80. The fail safes on those, the safeties on there are much more complex in the 45s and the 60s. And if you're getting on some unlevel ground,
sliding,
you're not going to get up there to that 85 foot. You're not going to get up there to that 60-foot level, because it'll start just beeping and it's a nightmare.
Yeah, you got to look at things like sprinklers in the ground, sprinkler heads. If the ground is already wet, and you think about how much that lift weighs, and you just go start driving across there without plywood, you're breaking the sprinkler heads, you're sinking the machine, you're doing all kinds of, you're sliding the machine off of the side of the thing onto the whatever, costing yourself
onto a hill that goes,
yeah. So there's a lot that goes into it, that having your own rep, again, even if you're only going to rent one time, I still encourage you to get, because you never know, as you grow in business, you may end up needing it more, and you're going to get, these favors, if you would, is I guess the best way to put it. Another thing is thinking about.
You and I were talking earlier, and I had, it's strange because I had like a friend call me on a job we were looking at together, and he sent me pictures, and he's like, the lift won't fit through here. And I said, yeah, you're right. And, so what do? Well, it's not that you don't get a lift, because you would have had to get a lift for this building or swing stage. It didn't literally look like it was that great for swing staging. So what do? I mean, you might even have to go and tear out part of the installation to get them. In this case, it would have been remove a fence. So is that
an option?
An option, and typically it would be, if it's just and is it an insurmountable cost? But that stuff that, just because there's something there, don't say, this can't be moved. I can't, get this out of the ground, because chances are you could. There's also a chance that you couldn't. This is also where your rep will tell you, well, I've got an interior grade articulating scissor that, is a little more narrower, that we could get out here. Now, it's not going to have ground tires. It's going to have interior tires. But if we put, if you rented some mats, or you had, plywood panels and put it down there, you could run it on that. But it is going to stick because it's slick tires, if it gets into the ground itself. So there's lots of options out there for but that's what your rep is going to do, is to help you understand your options that are out there in rentals.
And that's another thing. If you just go around and you're looking at lifts, I need a lift, and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to catch this lift. If you don't know enough about lifts to begin with, the tires is actually, that's a huge thing. So if you don't realize, hey, this has got those smooth interior tires, it's not meant for going across the grass. It's really not, and it won't. They'll just sit there for the most part.
Yeah. Sit there or sink.
Or sink, exactly.
Yeah.
Tom said always wear your harness as well. Say, for instance, the fail-safe fails and you come crashing down, OSHA will be there, and your insurance company may not cover you if you don't have that harness. Look, another thing about that is just moving the lift from place to place. I see a lot of guys, they're like, I don't need to put my harness on. I mean, I'm not even going up at all. Man, you need your harness, and you need to have that short leash on there, because I'm going to tell you what, you hit that little dip and you're out there on the end of you go flying.
I have gotten almost hurled out of lift.
You had
buckets.
Guys do that, didn't you?
Yeah. What's that?
Didn't you? I didn't mean to interrupt, but didn't you have guys that did that? Oh.
I had a similar one. I was going to say, I don't know how many I've gotten almost hurled out of a boom just whenever I went over a speed bump. and it just, because understand, like if you're going, so this is your pivot, here's your peerage right here. A 6-inch motion going over a speed bump here is going to translate to a 3 or 4 foot motion at the end of 40 foot of boom out there. So it's much more pronounced.
I think the one I'm thinking of is your guys were coming down and
came down on a parking sign.
Yeah, came down on a parking sign. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. And it was just a perfect little thing that it was a narrow parking sign, and they hit it just perfectly to where it did not glance off and go to the side, a handicap parking sign. It didn't flex and go to one side or the other. It was just stuck right there. And they kept on pulling down, and eventually on the lift handle, and eventually it squirted out to the side. I mean, I was working around the side of the building, and I heard the racket. And they were both like laid down in the basket. I mean, if they had not had their harnesses on, it would have snapped. It would have slung them out, because when it finally squirted past that handicap sign, it went down with just a fury on that. And that was a 60-footer. I mean, it was a big boy.
And it really doesn't take much.
And Bob Schmidt's talking about
the
spider lifts. Those are actually really, really cool. Spider lifts are
never
really
dealt with one yet, but that they are.
I've never used one, but I've seen them. I've seen them in action. A lot of our tree guys here have them. They're really easy to transport. You can, get one and hook it to a trailer and go. They're pretty darn cool lifts. I know that our rental companies don't like renting them. But,
so let's talk about something, Ray. What are the expenses that people don't think about when they're thinking about lift rentals? Because when you go on a website, it says this machine is $1,232 a day.
Mm-hmm.
But does that cost?
No. Are they going to charge you a setup and delivery fee? Are they going to charge you a cleaning fee? Are they going to charge you they're going to charge you, most likely they're going to charge you for diesel. And then delivery is absolutely huge.
How many hours is the machine good for if you rent it for the day?
8
hours.
I mean, that's a question, though. You need to check it out. And I've never had one stick it to me on this, but you need to ask, is it Hobbs time or meter time? Most of them have the right to sit there and read that meter and say, okay, you use this for an 8-hour day. Again, I've never had one actually hold me to that.
But do you leave your machine run the entire time, or do you?
No, I don't. Once we get to an area, we'll turn it off too,
Exactly. And that's the thing. We'll run the machine 12, 13, 14, 15 hours in a day, but the key and the motor are not on that entire time.
Right.
So you get to where you're going and you're going to start spraying your sauce, get in the habit of maybe shutting that thing down. Do it because you're going to be working in one area for a while generally, whether that a while is 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 15 minutes or an hour and a half. You're killing your clock time. Right.
Yeah.
So we've run way over our limit in actual use time, but never in clock time.
Right. Yep. So Manuel's asking, do you have to have a it's like a diving board if you're driving it with the boom out? Absolutely. Transport from job to job. If you move it, you're going to have it. And I know a lot of guys who I'm just going to buy one of those. No, you might, but then remember, if you're driving around a 22,000 pound 80-foot lift, you're going to have you're basically going to have a semi to move it,
Yep.
or a really heavy duty rollback. And then you're going to have a guy with a CDL on staff, or you're going to have one to drive that thing there. So add up, toss another $200,000, on the cost of that lift that you're buying.
We talked about this one already, Manuel. I mean, so most general liability policies will cover up to a certain amount in lift rentals, but they always offer you, they don't even offer it to you. They just automatically charge you. You have to tell them, and this is again, going back to the cost thing, that they'll charge you a percentage. Sometimes it's like 10% of whatever that rental fee is for added insurance. Okay. And so when they say it's $1,200 a day, they didn't include the drop-off fee, the fueling fee, or whatever, and they also didn't include the insurance. And again, just like we were talking about, he goes ahead and buys a policy that covers up to 100,000. I just go ahead and pay the extra 10% and bill it back to the customer. So that's
and there's also a difference. I mean, if it breaks, they're typically going to fix it. If you break it, you're going to fix it, or the policy that you purchase is going to.
And there's a lot of headache and red tape, and sometimes they'll say you got to pay for it up front until the insurance company pays you back. They pay you back. Pay them back.
Yeah, Bobby just mentioned United charges $100 each way for delivery and pickup. Sunbelt is a lot more expensive than that here. Rusty, there is actually a Lyft class that is in, it talks about general lifts and safety and all what we're talking about now in Pro. Look it up, Lyft safety class.
And that's at www.spraywashpro.com, and that's in the Lyft class there. It's one of the free.
It's free for Spray Wash Pro members.
If you're a Pro member,
the little added cost on there can really jump it up. And then also, something people don't think about, but they really should. Like if you have an 85, let's say you've got multiple jobs and an 85 would work on it. It might only be a 4-story building, but lift prices go down. So, I mean, lift prices are insane. It's usually like, okay, it's $1,200 a day, but then it's going to be $3,600 a week. And then it's going to be $6,000 for a month. I mean, it's like you rent it for a week and you're basically paid a month rental price. And something I think a lot of guys don't think about is let's say you're doing a project this week, and then you got a project one weekend that you've got to do it. And then you've got a project, 3 weeks out that you got to do it. Consider renting the lift for a month and just leaving it at the subject property or having it moved to the next property out in the parking lot. Usually if it's a big parking lot, they're not going to have a problem with it. Hell, I've even had the maintenance guys before come out and say, God, can I use this thing? I need to change light bulbs out and so on and so forth. And I'll say, write me a hold harmless agreement on your letterhead, and I don't have a problem if you use it at all. And United or Sunbelt or Equipment Share, they'll still come and move it to you from place to place. Now, there might be a charge, but I guarantee you, if you're using a lift that much, that charge is going to be less than if you went out there and rented a lift 3 separate times for 2 to 5 day projects, a 1 month rental on that.
And when you're looking at the cost of rentals and all that, again, like he said, typically the way it is 3 days. If you're going to rent it for 3 days, you might as well keep it for a week. If you're going to rent it for 2 weeks, you might as well get it for the month, that kind of thing. But also keep in mind that a lot of times you'll have clients that are way bigger than you are. Okay. You might have 2 guys in your company, and you might have 20 guys in your company. You might have 60 guys in your company, right? But you're dealing with entities that might have 2, 4, 6, 8, 1,200 employees, and they have other things that they do. So they have maintenance departments. And so they already have contracts with United Rentals or Sunbelt or whatever. And so that my cost for a lift, let's say it's just for round figures, let's say my cost is $1,000 for the week, and their cost might be $600 for the week. They don't want to pay me $1,000 for the rental. Plus, if my fee, if it costs me $1,000 for the rental, I am not charging you $1,000. I have to spend my time to find the right rental, to do this, to go around and get fuel, do the things that need to be done. So I'm upcharging 10% minimum, maybe 15% on top of. They already know that. Okay. So if they have that ability, why not just say, if you would like to provide the rental, if you would like to provide the lift, we can remove this charge for you. Some of these companies already own lifts and such. Let's say it's some sort of a stadium. They might have it for changing light bulbs, right?
I've had Florida State let me use their 135 before when I was washing the stadium. Really was very helpful because those things are $2,500 a day. And, here's somebody, Wild West just said, hey, if the
Mhm.
equipment's towable, sometimes the rep will just go pick it up and deliver it for them. Yeah, absolutely. Um,
That's building
the
relationships.
training and certification, and I saw the PWMCA. They actually just said, or not the PWMCA, but Jamie Schmidt just did a boot camp, and they were actually doing like a day of aerial lift or aerial platform training.
Mhm.
They had a trainer come in and do that, and yeah, I mean, you need your lift card. You need a card that says you are certified on a lift and you've been trained on this property, this equipment.
Yeah, that's another thing. Depending on where you're working, they may make a requirement that you have the proper certifications for the type of equipment that you're going to run. It's funny that brings into my head that I remember we went to a convention somewhere and they
Yeah, it's up in my room. I'll be right back.
they had the
I remember that.
requirement that the person operating the forklift have a certain certification. I don't remember who it was, but somebody went online real quick and made a certification and emailed it to him.
Yep.
I don't remember who that was. Gee, I
I
don't
don't
know.
know who that was. No
Yeah,
idea.
I don't know who
No
that
idea.
was. But I proved that I could drive the thing pretty doggone well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I thought about that.
Forklift. Come on, man.
Yeah, it was a forklift. I mean, come on. I get
Yeah,
it.
David's talking about the lift certification at the PWM. So that was PWMCA. I didn't know if it was there or if it was the boot camp that Jamie did. We were just mentioning that. But it's good training to have. It really is. And I mean, it is danger. I mean, I was in a lift for years and years and years and years before I ever went through the formal training. Still something you should do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's good, especially if you haven't had any experience or little experience on the type of equipment that they are delivering to you. Get with the driver and have him show you how to operate that piece of equipment and the proper procedures. Or if that falls through, you've got a couple other options for you, right? I can't. There have been a few times where you get the lift and the instructions on how to operate the lift are just worn out completely.
Yeah.
So in the center of the parking lot, get yourself familiar and used to and how to, and take a marks a lot if you have to, and make sure you've got all the instructions on there to get it done right. They're not supposed to let it that far out of whack, but it happens. And then last but not least, I mean, if you've got your smartphone, hop on the internet and you will likely find the operating instructions on the internet for those things.
I knew somebody was going to say it. Yep, Tommy did it.
And of course, it had to be Tom.
Yep. You can get in some of these lifts where and by all means, what you're saying is you can go on there and type in the model number and get a picture of the control panel, or talk to that lift driver if he's there if you're there when he's delivering it. Because I've been in these lifts that have had so much paint splattered over it, or just so old that been out in the sun so long that the instructions are literally worn off of it. You can't see the icons on there, and I can pretty well figure it out from years of experience in there. But yeah, it's
so. Ray, typically when you rent one of these machines, you absolutely have to meet the driver there, correct?
No. I very rarely meet the driver anymore.
Very rare. And so where are you going to typically find the keys?
Open the control panel box up and sitting on top of the control panel.
Or
well, I have a standing rule with mine that they're not allowed to leave the keys in there.
That's
and that is something that's
you're responsible for that.
It's your responsibility. Whenever
they drop it off, you're responsible. And I can tell you, they will leave the keys right there in it. And going down a slightly different path with that. And here's another way to save on lift rentals as you do that. But let's say, for example, that you need it there on Saturday morning at 6 a.m. And they say, okay, great. We're going to drop it off on Friday at some given point in time, right? So Friday, they drop it off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they drive it off. They leave the key right there in it. It is your responsibility at that point. Okay. So now the local high school gets out and the kids go walking by and, oh, hey, this is pretty cool. Why do you think that when you drive by construction sites, a lot of this stuff is lifted up in the air? Okay, so some of it they're lifting it up so that people.
So we always leave ours. We always leave ours with the bucket with the booms extended and up in the air, at least like 12, 14 foot.
Because you're going to have people that will go in and mess with it and play with it. And believe me, if there's a key in it, they're going to start it, or they're going to take that key and they're going to throw it away, and you're not going to have a key for it now.
You know, another irony
of where to hide that key so that you know how to find it and where to find it.
Another irony that you'll wind up having eventually is a bunch of spare keys for lifts. I probably got 15 just through various reasons, you know, forgot to give them back, or there were 2 keys or whatever. You realize that lift keys are typically all the same. I mean, there's only about 4 different lift keys out there, you know. JLG has one. Genie has one.
Your box truck, I mean, you know, the side locks to them, they have, I mean, a lot of the exact same keys. They're not like, I mean, actually go to Home Depot, right, and pick up a set of keys for a house and then pick up the next set. Look at the lock numbers on them. There's a lot of keys that match. And so, you know, it is what it is. And so on something like that, there's actually very few keys. Lawnmower keys. I mean, I can take my lawnmower key and go start my neighbor's, you know, lawnmower. You know, that happens a lot. So it is something where you can end up with extra keys, but you still want to make them hide it somewhere.
Nick says if you rent enough, you'll have one. Yeah, you will. And it will get forgotten to be returned. And you'll realize how important it is to them, because they will never call you back and say, "Oh my God, we can't bless you." We realize, you know, the Wild West. A lot of times you can use a little knife. You can. I'm not recommending that, but yeah, you can. A lot of them have a plastic compartment where they keep a manual, the loop where you can put a lock on it. That's a good place for a combination lock to keep keys. Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff, Bobby.
Yeah, you can get little different lock boxes with, I mean, not lock boxes, but combination locks. You can get the little cheap ones, and you can get ones that are fairly expensive and have numbers on them. And you can, if you're going to have a machine there where you're going to be using it for, let's say, a month, and you might have several different people operating it, you can put one of those household lock boxes on there with a code, and then they open it up, they get the key. When they're done, they put it back in there. You know, you can even have sign out sheets, you know, there for them, whatever, you know, kind of thing to make sure. So, and then keep in mind too, going back a little bit to the safety side of it, and that is, it's not just you in the machine, but it's those around the machine and people that are going to be interacting with the machine, the radius of how it turns out and what it does. You know, obviously talking about let's say like a boom lift or whatever, you have to know that it's not going to hit anything. Yet maybe cones, maybe caution tape, maybe red tape. You have to think about all of the aspects of that lift, and it's not just about going in the air. And a lot of them, if you get so high in the air and you're turned such a way, you know, they won't move anymore. I mean, as far as on the ground, the tires and wheels won't move. And then there are other ones where if you get them down to the right, you can still move it even though you're in the air. These are all good things to know with your particular piece of equipment because of the safeguards that are built into place.
Well, I know a lot of those the Genie 85s, once you swing out past 90 degrees and you get on the opposite side of the drive wheels, or the same side as the steering wheels on that basket, you have to have an additional switch that you have to hold down and activate before you can drive it again, because you've gotten on the wrong side of the lift. I mean, there's no fear that's going to fall over. You've just gotten on the wrong side of it. So you're going to have to push a button down and to start moving it again.
A lot of them you have to It's a several step process to get it to do anything. I can't tell you how many times, and I kind of think it's funny, where I'll get somebody and they'll be new. And when I say new, like maybe they've even worked for me for 6 months or whatever the case may be. Hey, have you ever operated a lift ray? Oh yeah, man. I've operated lots of them things. Oh yeah. And you can tell by the way they say it. Why don't you go move that thing over there a little bit? All right. They get in there and they look at it, and then they try to start it. They can't even start it, or they get it started and now they're switching and they're moving and they're doing all kinds. A lot of them take a multi-step process. Like you might have to push down on the accelerator pedal, right? Bring the RPMs up, and then you got a little lift lever, and then you can move one direction or the other. Some of them you might have to push down on this, push this button here, and then move this over here.
Well,
right?
it's like you can crank it. You can crank it without having, like I know a lot of the JLGs or the Genies. You can crank it without, if you can't push down the safety foot treadle. If you push it down, you can't crank it. But then if you crank it, you've got to push that foot safety down to do anything else with it, and then let it go. I mean, it's still like sometimes you had to do the Vulcan nerve pinch to pull up the safety collar on the joystick and then move it around, and it's kind of strange. And,
it's got a switch at the panel that says you operate it from the panel or you operate it from the bucket. If you don't have that in the right place, it's not going to operate. Or if you've pushed in the emergency stop, it's not going to operate.
I've had several times too recently. It seems like a lot that I've had to actually operate it from the ground where my guys have got out of balance, and the gyroscopes and the safeties have just gone haywire up top, and they can't get it to come down or move or anything. So I have to turn the machine off and then turn it on ground control and start manually, moving it from them. That's that's something you may wind up having to do, but it is so urgent to have strong verbal communication whenever you are doing that. Again, you're not screwing around. You've literally got people's lives in your, not at the touch of your finger, you have somebody's life. And it's like, I'm going to now bring the main boom down. Please hold on, and you start, doing the main boom. I am now going to swing the table, out to the left. Please, and just talk this. You don't want to just get down there and start hitting things while they're in that basket, above ground.
And there are already out there are control signals so that if you can't voice to one another. So first of all, I do recommend two-way radios, but there are different controls, right? So you're going to go, say boom up or boom down and hold the load, or, come up easy. There's a lot of different things that you can do that communicate that are standard across the globe kind of thing, where even if it's not one of your guys, that you can still communicate. Sometimes here in Louisiana, we have communication barriers with whether it's a Cajun trying to speak to a Spanish guy, it doesn't, or occasional crackhead, whatever it is. But these communications, well, except for the crackhead, they're all the same. You need the crackheads kind of do something different, but
you need that coon ass to crackhead translation dictionary there. There's that international sign for you're going too fast.
Ah! Yeah. And surprisingly, some people don't know what this means. Stop, whatever. So, but there's this, stop, that kind. So there are different things. This is like, really, stop. No, stop. You're gonna crash. But people don't get it. Yeah.
Honestly, if you're under it, you need to have a hard hat on. You or your crews, if you're anywhere under that bucket. That's one of the things that OSHA will look at whenever they come around there. Somebody working under a lift without a hard hat.
I'm also going to go so far as to say, and this is something I do not know. I do not know if there is a specific requirement for how far out and away that a hard hat must be in use. And the reason that pops into my brain is, have you ever sat there and you're working with a wrench and you hit it on something and it goes flipping and it goes flying out? Well, as it goes, it's going to travel further and further as it's going out there. So for me, if you're going to be within, say, 15 feet, you want to probably have a hard hat.
And there are also, we had that great picture in the academy that was sent to me by somebody in Tallahassee, by a fireman we all know and love in Tallahassee. And it was a picture of that lit because it happened here in Tallahassee. And TFD was on there where that lift went and arced the things, and the lift caught on fire. And it was literally on fire from the ground up, going up, the thing. And the guy, it was arcing these live wires. And, they said if he would have actually grabbed hold of the bucket, the rails, he would have died. He would have killed himself because of the current going through there. Mm-hmm. There are regulations. I'm not qualified to talk about them. There's mm-hmm. regulations for how many feet you need to be around from different electrical lines. And certain lines have a certain amount of feet. There's another certain lines have another certain amount of feet. I recently even heard a story it was really shocking, but a window cleaner friend told me about this, where it was like the tree was wet. I don't know if it was from washing or a rainstorm, and it had not trimmed. It had not been trimmed over the power pole. So the power lines were running through the lines were through the tree, and there was a window cleaner, and he brought his pole back, and it hit the tree and wound up grounding him out and killing him. I don't know. I don't know the who, where, when, how, what, just what, So yeah, be careful. Just remember, you can even touch a wet tree and it can kill you. So
we were talking about that a moment ago. El Boogie.
No, they're not outdated. They're actually better. They're so much better than the cell phones. Mm-hmm. Our trucks have walkie-talkies in there because if you're it's like, but walkie-talkie is stop.
And it's an instantaneous thing for the most part. It's not there's no delay. And definitely, I mean, I hear that a lot too about we have cell phones. We'll just use cell phones. Mm-hmm. It's really not the same. I mean, it works better than, hey, down there, can you hear me? Definitely works better than that. But the two-way radios, walkie-talkies are really, in my opinion, if you're using a lift, they're a must. You should have them. And they're stupid cheap. I mean, even if you go to the Walmart, get the $5 Mickey Mouse ones is better than not having them. That kind of thing.
And it really does look incredibly unprofessional whenever you're on a job and you're screaming and yelling at your lift operator. It looks awful. It's a horrible optic.
And it really leaves a negative impression on those around the job at that time. If they're like, I mean, because most people recognize and realize that, two-way communication is so easy nowadays. I mean, and it has been for many, many years. So there's really no need for you to be yelling back and forth. It shows that you're not prepared for that job in a lot of cases. That's kind of how I look at it, how the customer looks at it.
I used to love those Nextel phones. Doug, I've done an hour. I'm going to have to excuse myself. I need to talk to Tanya. She just walked in, and I apologize for getting off quickly here.
Nope, you were late getting here and early getting out, and you're a slacker.
Yeah, my apologies, guys. Thanks, everybody, for joining in. Apology I didn't think I was going to be able to make it at all, but luckily Brittany was here to help me bathe Finn. So, awesome. All right, guys, thank y'all. And Doug, you hang out, and I'm gonna head on out and talk to Tanya. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Appreciate it. We'll see you. All right, look, we're almost done anyhow. We're almost at that hour point. If you have any questions, let's go ahead and let's get them out the way. Go ahead and stick them up there. Aside from that, we really are really close to the hour. I'm going to look over my notes here real quick, just make sure I got the things that I wanted to catch. We talked about the rent versus owning. Think about this. How many people are going to be in the basket? If you're going to have one person in the basket, two people in the basket, all of those affect the type of lift that you need, the basket that you need, the safety measures that you need. Again, access. And we kind of talked about this a little bit where sometimes you might have to take down a fence in order to be able to get in. Sometimes you need to look and see, hey, is this machine going to be too wide to fit into that back area? Is this the right machine to be on that grade that you're going through? All of these things are things that you need to take into consideration. Wind conditions. Think about the wind conditions ahead of time. So again, that goes right in with the site conditions, that kind of thing. The safety and training we went over, damage and fuel we went over, keys, plywood we talked about, fuel we talked about, turning it off, delivery and setup, plugging it in. They have rough terrain, scissors. Looking at this, I think we pretty much covered everything. So unless y'all have questions, I think we're going to call it an evening there. So let me go over this. Wild West says, later, Ray. Nick is saying, later, Ray. Later, Doug and family, Douglas and fam. Michael J. just coming in here, I think, is what I saw. And now we're cutting out on you. See how we are? You get here and we're all leaving you. I had to four-wheel through Florida field before with a lift. Yeah, Ray once had to go. I remember this one here when he called me. He's like, man, I just need somebody to talk to because he had the super long driveway where the semi couldn't get in to make the delivery. And he's like, man, I got to drive this lift the entire way down there. So I thought it was funny. And he called me because he was bored from the drive and the lift. But anyhow, do you have to have your employee insured for the heights you are going to and lift? Yeah, I mean, so a lot of the policies out there are only up to 3 stories, or you need to talk with your insurance agent about that. That's number one, because there are certain things in there that say you have to do this, or you're not covered for this. So I would talk with your insurance guy and make sure that it's covered. But there are some of them in there where if you go over a certain 15 foot's typically the general rule. If you go over 15 feet, you're not covered anymore. So do make sure you've got the right insurances in place. Hey, I really appreciate y'all for listening to us. And as I said in the very beginning, all right. Y'all take care. We appreciate you very much. And we'll see you Thursday.